Mike, I'm looking at this buffalo. There's a buffalo here. There's buffaloes all around me. We love buffaloes, the North American buffalo. And there's a tradition, a story among the American Indians, the Native Americans, what the buffalo is known for. The only animal, when the storm front approaches, all other animals run away from the storm. And of course, that's a trying task because you have to run. And the faster the storm goes, the faster you have to run. And then you're running from it for a long time. And when it catches up with you, you have to deal with the storm. The buffalo, as the only animal, turns around and walks right through the storm, faces the challenge head on, and minimizes the time that it's going to spend in the storm. And so we have these reminders. When Christine and I discovered the story, what my wife always does is she made sure we internalize it, we embody it, we see it every day. So there's buffaloes all around our house. So we're reminded of when a challenge presents itself, go head on, face it now. And I think that's where we're at. That there is no more escape. There's no more sitting it out. There's no more waiting it out. Whatever the challenge is in your life, the decision you have to make, the stuff you have to fix, you heal. I think we have to face it head on. And 2024 will be, in my view, exponentially good and better for those who have done it and who are doing it, and exponentially worse for those who are fighting it still and not wanting to go there. Do you kind of see that too in observing people?
Yes, I do. I absolutely see that. And a lot of what you're saying is I see that everywhere. And both, Tanya and myself see it as well. We've traveled a lot this year, and it just seems to me that it is like I believe it is a natural cycle, you might say. And I don't know if I shared this with you or not. I don't actually recall now, but did I talk about the invite that we had to Hopi Land this year?
Yes, you shared.
Yeah.
I don't know if you shared it on camera or privately though.
Right. So, I mean, that to me was, again, symbolizing what you're talking about too. It's like where we have to make a decision. And being the buffalo and walking into the storm, one of the things that came to mind while you were talking about is that, how often have I faced a problem and my imagination can get the better of me. I can begin to think, oh my God, like some letter comes or some government thing or whatever form it takes, right? And you begin to think, oh, this is horrible, this is going to be bad. And what happens is that when you just face it and deal with it, it actually turns out usually to be not nearly as bad or have not nearly as nasty a bite as you thought it did. And so the idea of the buffalo facing, they probably learned in their evolution that, hey, you go through a bit of hail and, whatever, lightning and stuff, and then it will, pound you, but then it's over. And and I guess the Native Americans had the closest relationship to those animals before they were essentially pushed to the brink of extinction by the invading Europeans. And being this year we were in Sedona, Tanya managed to organize a tour of Hopi Land for us. We had a shaman who took us on the land and took us right to Prophecy Rock.
That's a rare honor, by the way.
It is, and especially now because after we found out after a very few weeks after we were there, the rock was vandalized heavily, and now nobody is going to go back there for a long time, probably, right? And when I came back, and the shaman who gave us the talk about what the symbolism was on the Prophecy Rock, I had to chuckle and smile because it was like, again, I might have a picture of it here. Hold on. This is Thomas Banyakya. He was the previous former kind of ambassador of the Hopi elders, and he has a copy of what's drawn on the Hopi Rock on this canvas that he carried around and when in his travels. He's no longer alive. He died in 1999. But there's some very profound things on the information that he put out, and I just wanted to share this with you because. On the one hand, I was, you can see the two timelines. The top timeline represents the modern man, the four, major inventions like the wheel, computers, flight, and automobile and stuff like that. And the bottom one has circles that represent major earth-changing events, man-made events like the wars. Those two circles are considered the First and Second World War. And then there's a line where they essentially connect on the far right. And then on the upper one, at that point, there's a zigzag that goes off into chaos. And the lower one, there's another circle. And then there's this being there, which is Masao. He's the creator being, and he's waiting for the Hopis to get through the last big test. And that alone in itself was amazing because it was tying in a lot of the prophetic or the information that was coming out with respect to looking glass material that I was exploring for the last year and a half. So I had to laugh because of that alone. But if you look at that picture at the top left and right, there are two symbols there. And on the left part, there's a symbol with a circle around it that represents the masculine. And on the right, there's a symbol that represents the feminine. And what he's saying is that the balance between masculine and feminine needs to be maintained for the world to stay, obviously, in balance. And again, this year was a year where we saw a lot of this whole transgenderism go off the charts, right? But where I'm going with this is that I had to, just a few weeks ago, Tanya and I were invited to a very, very special place. In fact, it was the place where the Templar order was founded over 1,000 years ago. And we were actually in the building, in the basement, that, this basement goes back to the times of the Romans. And I was looking at the walls, and I'll show you some of what we saw there. It's like, what do you see on the walls of the Templars from, 900 or 1,000 years ago, right? Look at those symbols, John. Yep. Right?
They've been inverted, perverted, but they've been around for a very long time.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, why, what Banyakya was saying was that those two symbols are what's on the shakers that are used by the Hopis in their ceremonies with respect to the prophecy. And they've had them for 900 years. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, 900 years. How did the Hopi get the Templar symbols on their shaker? 400 years before white man supposedly even came over to the continent, according to the official version of history, right? So we're touring around in this place, and what do we see? A painting. Here, I'll show you this. On the wall in one of the stories of this building. And what is that showing? That's showing a squash plant. You see? And you're thinking, yeah, so what, right? Well, problem is that painting has been carbon dated to over 1,000 years old. So, excuse me, or 900 years, let's say, right? Mm-hmm. That doesn't make sense because you would think, okay, to a normal person, it's only a painting of a squash. Well, if you're anybody that knows anything about horticulture, you realize that squash was brought from North America to Europe 500 years later, after the date of this actual painting on the wall. So some interesting things started going around in my mind, like,
Does this actually surprise you in any way anymore?
No, not anymore, because I've been digging around in this teleportation, Project Looking Glass and all this weird stuff everyone thinks is woo-woo. They don't want to believe this technology is real. Well, here I was in the basement that goes back 1,000 years ago, and the Templar order had actually developed ultraviolet technology, John, right? Even though, ultraviolet, like disco light technology. Where did they get it from? Well, they developed it, and there's evidence of it on the walls in this place. And there again is the symbols, right? You would think like, wow, okay, what does that mean? Well, it basically means that they had technology that was far and above maybe what we think they were able to manage or deal with way back then. And this technology somehow allowed them.
You deserve the truth, but big tech does not want you to hear it. So we built our own Inspired platform on the inspiredchannel.com. To watch the full video and more, just click the link in the video description or the pinned comment.